From Florida's Space Coast, this is Your Career.
Welcome to Your Career. I'm Debbie Featherston, your host, and with me is Suzanna Norris. She is the Executive Director of HART. Susanna, actually Susie, as you prefer to be called, let me ask you to tell us a little bit about your career journey and how it led to your involvement with horses.
As a young person, I kind of started out as a little bit of a different path. I chose to go to school to be a civil engineer. My dad was an engineer, and I realized there were a lot of positives, but I also realized that there was something missing. And although I'd always been riding horses, I never did it as a full-time career. So I decided to go ahead and go for it, bought a property, started an equestrian center, which soon turned into a nonprofit thoroughbred rescue.
Cool. And we're going to unpack this story because it's very fascinating. When you take an individual that goes from civil engineering or any type of engineering, and then you move into horse training and the whole rescue operation, which is much more involved than just that. When did you actually discover that you had a true passion for horses?
Oh my goodness. I honestly can't remember ever not having a passion for horses. So I just remember always begging my dad for riding lessons, me and my sister both, and he finally gave in, and we've been riding since the age of 7, learning more about horses, and in turn learning how much the horses can help me grow as a person. So that is a really fascinating part of why I continue to strive and learn more and be more and do more with the horses. So our mission is we focus primarily on retired racehorses. A lot of these horses are young, 3, 4, 5 years old. When they're coming off the track, they're coming off for various reasons. They may be just too slow to race. Their heart's not in it. They may have had an injury that will keep them from running again, those sort of things. So as these horses come off the track, they need a place to go, and a lot of them don't have a place to go. So what we try to do is work with the trainers at the track and bring them in fresh off the track, give them some downtime, give them a chance to be horses again, get to know them a little bit more, have the vet look at them, have the farrier look at them, and then kind of start making a plan for that horse's new future.
So you really have an individual plan for each horse.
Yes. One of the biggest things for a great horseman is to be able to read the horses. If you can listen to the horse, they will tell you what they need, where they're lacking, and honing that skill is probably the most important part of dealing with horses. So I work with the horses, but a lot of times I'm observing and just listening to what they're telling me.
So when you're talking about listening, it's really a behavior that you're observing?
Sure.
Movement,
yes.
Withdrawing, that kind of thing. Is that what you mean by that?
Yes, of course. It's all, and horses communicate with body language, and they read our body language as well. So it's important to understand what language you're passing to the horse as well.
Yeah, what are you communicating?
Sure. And
through your body language,
that's
I
right.
see. Okay.
And a lot of people, especially inexperienced people, may be sending signals to the horse that they don't realize they're sending. So understanding that aspect, that back and forth, what am I doing to create that behavior in the horse, or, where is that behavior coming from? Is there something I can do to support the horse to help him be more comfortable with his new career and what the questions that we're asking him?
As a horse trainer, there were a lot of different avenues that you could have taken. What led you to start the nonprofit, HART?
Well, we started out originally as an equestrian center. I've always, for a very long time, worked as a trainer, giving lessons, that sort of thing. I got involved with an organization that worked with off-the-track thoroughbreds and realized how much need there really is for these horses to have a place to go. And I know we're making a small difference, but it's my mission to really go out and spread the awareness of where these horses, there's tens of thousands of them that coming off the track, and they have nowhere to go. So once working with this other organization, I realized that if I can make a difference, I'm going to go for it.
Yeah.
So I didn't know anything about nonprofit. I kind of leaped off the cliff and went for it. But because of my passion for horses, it was the right decision to make.
What were some of the considerations that went into starting HART? And HART is actually an acronym, Hidden Acres Rescue for Thoroughbreds. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And so tell us a little bit more about what some of the considerations were, because that is why you say it's a leap of faith. You know, we see a lot of people that jump out, start nonprofits. Some succeed, some don't. You've been successful. So tell us a little bit more about what did you consider and what that journey looked like at this stage.
I was pretty confident in myself as a horse trainer and somebody that could really help the horses. Of course, the nonprofit side was something I didn't know much about. I've never been one to back away from a challenge. Considering what it would take from the nonprofit side, we already had some lessons established. We already had boarding established, some services that we were offering to help kind of support from a financial side.
Now you got to have those different revenue streams, don't you, to generate funding, because fundraising is a big challenge for you.
It is, and so because we had a little bit of a foundation there offering those services, it gave me some time to develop the skills we needed from the nonprofit side, develop the idea that we were a sustainable program and help people feel secure with donating their funds to us or receiving grants from various organizations and that sort of thing.
That's excellent. So what has been perhaps one of the greatest challenges or some of the challenges that you've faced in moving from the equestrian center to the nonprofit and continuing to grow the nonprofit?
Well, I have to say, funding. So horses are very high overhead. They eat a lot. There's always unexpected vet bills. So you just have to kind of be prepared for anything. And like I said in the beginning, nobody's going to give funding to a program they know nothing about. So you really have to, put your best foot forward, and you really have to go out and prove to the funding organizations, to your community, that you are what you say you are, and that they can feel safe in giving the money to this organization. It's going to go where we say it's going to go. Our lesson program is very successful. My twin sister, runs the lesson program. Her and I both have been very active with horses all of our lives. We have 3 other instructors working underneath her. We have
the lessons are for who?
Beginner to advanced, ages 4 and up.
Okay, so it could be an adult, it could be a 4-year-old, it could be somebody teenager, doesn't matter. As long as
could be anybody, and coming from never riding a horse to being an experienced rider as well.
Okay.
So,
and wanting more advanced pointers or tips or whatever, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, and then we have the lesson program. We do offer leases for people that maybe do not have the time or the resources to take on a horse for themselves. They might want to do a partial lease where they have access to the horse 3 days a week or something like that. We do adoptions, so a little bit like a sale of a horse with just a little bit more control on where the horse goes and that sort of thing. We offer boarding. So one of the challenges we're facing right now is people adopt the horses and they want to stay to do lessons, to be a part of the program, to really get involved. Well, we only have 7 acres. So we're hoping to venture out and get more land, which is a challenge in this area in itself.
It is.
So that's one of the challenges we're facing right now is, how do we expand? Where do we get the funding to expand and that sort of thing?
And do you move the whole entire operation, or do you have an extension? I suppose those are some of your thoughts.
Absolutely. And we have thought about, kind of splitting up where part of the program stays where it's at, part of the program moves. And I do have a business plan on that already. So.
Good. Doesn't surprise me. I'm just curious, what are some, you'd mentioned that the nonprofit piece was the thing that you knew the least about. So what were some of the resources that you found to help you to grow and sustain the nonprofit? Well,
there's actually some great organizations out there that have helped me. And Research, just always looking for something new. Some of the big organizations that have really helped the program, we recently got our accreditation with Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance. They work specifically with thoroughbred organizations. Only accredited organizations get funding from their program, but it also gives us a credibility. It's a rigorous, very rigorous accreditation process. And for us to be accredited gives us, the reputation that we need for others to give us funding. There's the Global Federation of Animal Sanctuaries that also accredits organizations. We're close to getting our verification from them. And then the ASPCA always has a lot of resources for us as well. What's nice about the accreditation process is that a lot of the things they're expecting of us helps us set ourselves up for success. For instance, the ASPCA has an event every year. It's called the Help a Horse Day.
Okay.
And it's a competition for rescues like mine to celebrate equine rescue. So this year, 170 organizations competed across the nation there's $100,000 in prizes.
Wow.
$25,000 for top prize. But a lot of the things that we're being judged, the criteria that they're looking at, are all things that, whether we win the prize money or not, we come out better than we were prior to the event. So it's very genius of the ASPCA to put organizations like mine in that position.
So what's really involved in that contest?
There's kind of it's a broad spectrum, and it's really up to each organization to really decide what they want to do to celebrate equine rescue. We this year partnered with the Melbourne Arts Festival and at Wickham Park and had the horses there, and we had a bunch of smaller events as well. So they're really looking at, how much money you raised, how many horses you adopted, how many volunteers you engaged, what were your marketing strategies, all those things that when you're doing those things well, you have a sustainable program. So
that's the madness of the method.
Yes, yes.
They want to make certain that those 170 rescue operations are successful. So therein lies the purpose of the contest.
Absolutely.
I take it. Okay, and the prize money is just a sweet little.
That's right. It motivates
bonus.
us all.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, especially when fundraising is one of the greatest challenges, right?
Absolutely.
And it's an ongoing challenge, I imagine. And like you
Yes.
say, having had a horse when I was a kid, I know how much they eat.
Yes, and they don't stop eating.
No, they don't. So what does HART really look like today? Anything different than what we've talked about? You mentioned it was 7 acres. How many horses? What do you do?
I really feel like that HART is finally, after 5-6 years, growing its own legs. We have a foundation to build upon, and one of the things we're really looking at moving into is reaching out to the community. And anybody that's been around horses understands that, okay, yeah, we may be rescuing the horses, but the true value of all this is they're rescuing us. And it seems selfish to me to keep this to ourselves. So we're looking at working with other organizations in our community, across One's Youth Services, for instance. We're starting a partnership with them, working with the people in their organizations to have a positive experience with the horses, looking into working with veterans, at-risk youth, and other various.
So use it more as a therapeutic, like some people have used dogs.
Correct. So some of our volunteers are veterans, and they just get so much out of being out there with the horses.
Talking about challenges, I believe I read on your website that you are mostly a volunteer organization.
Yes.
How do you handle that? Because that can be a challenge.
Well, it is a challenge. You have to give to get back.
Yeah.
And, of course, we need for the horses, but if we're just always taking, it doesn't really work. So we try really hard to give back to our volunteers, and working with horses is a lot of work.
Yes.
It's not always glamorous.
Right.
but we've
Cleaning stalls.
Yes.
And yes, I did that. I do know.
So setting up training programs where people can learn more. A lot of our volunteers really haven't had a lot of horse experience. So the challenge of keeping them safe while they're learning, sometimes slows down the process. But we have a training program that people can go in. We do discounted lessons for our volunteers, and really trying to just keep a finger on the pulse of, what can we do for our volunteers that will help them feel more like a part of the program and not just, give. Kind of thing. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a way that you can get the retention of the volunteer and the quality of volunteer that you're looking for.
Absolutely.
Because that to me, when I've worked with volunteer-driven organizations, right, they've had a challenge with, turnover.
Yes.
Right? So you just want to make certain, that you get the right people. So I'm glad to hear that there's some real win-win.
Yes.
Right.
And it's a work in progress, and I feel like it always will be. If we're smart, we'll continue to pay attention and listen to what the volunteers need, just like we listen to the horses.
Certainly, certainly. Yeah, we got to listen to those humans.
Yes.
They bark louder.
Yes, they do.
Or should I say whinny louder? But what I'm really kind of curious about, and I think I heard a little bit of this in some of your responses, but I'm always curious as how one's earlier career, right, just looking at your fascinating career journey, right, life journey, if you will. So you had a passion for horses, but with the influence of Dad being an engineer, you went the route of engineering, right? I think you said your sister also is an engineer, and chemical engineer. In her case, you're civil.
Yes.
So how has your engineering degree and that work really helped you to be an effective leader for the rescue?
Well, I think it's helped me a lot, actually. It's a very different career path, but I've noticed some similarities, and really running a business is really about problem solving, and that's what engineers do. We're good with numbers, and we're good at analyzing. We like to look at things in all different directions. So planning, and really looking and every day trying to improve. And so being able to look at the numbers and understand what I'm seeing, and being able to see the problems and come up with creative solutions. And some of them are big problems, some of them are small problems, but every day that's what I spend my time doing is perfecting this and taking care of that. And so having that analytical mind, I think, is an asset to the program, especially when you're rescuing horses. It's easy to let your heart kind of lead the way.
Right.
And I have to make some hard decisions sometimes, and I have to say no to some horses because of the promises I've made to the horses that have come onto the property.
Yeah. So the horses that you currently have, you've got a commitment, and you don't want to take on more than you can really do well.
Yes. So being able to make that hard decision and understand the impact of not making that decision, and I do see in general that rescues do tend to fall into those traps if they're not careful. So having that balance between the analytical mind, but also having the heart to really care and nurture and bring these horses back to health and develop them into sustainable riding horses beyond their racing careers.
Right. So we wanted to come back to the one piece around adoption.
Yes.
Because really you can't get all these horses and keep them as much as you might love to, right?
Yes.
Because I could imagine the volunteers going, oh, we can't get rid of this.
There's always tears. Yes.
Yeah, there's got to be tears. But there's also tears of joy in the reality, right? You've got to prepare people for the adoption.
Yep.
So tell us about some of your successes and some of the issues, just a little bit about the adoption piece and how do you some successes.
So thus far we've been able to adopt out about 150 horses.
Wow. In 3 years?
Well, since 2011.
Okay.
So basically our program is designed to not, make these horses top show horses. What we look at when evaluating these horses and training these horses is making them user friendly.
Yeah.
So I want to know that the horse is going to be able to go out into the real world, step out of HART, and be able to feel comfortable in his own skin. So, so that means, giving the horse certain skills, but it also means seeking the right home for him. And so, a horse that's suitable for one discipline is not going to be happy in another.
Yeah.
So, so I try really hard to evaluate the people coming in, ask the right questions.
Right. What are some of those kinds of questions that you might ask?
Okay. Well, some of it's chemistry, some of it's basic stuff like, experience in riding, your discipline, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But another thing that comes into play is, who you are as a person. Are you a timid person? Are you an outgoing person? Are you somebody that's, has high aspirations? Are you somebody that just wants to hug your horse? I mean, and,
Sure.
and all these things play in. And, some horses want to be hugged, some horses want to be athletes.
That's it. That's right.
So,
So looking at matching the personality of the owner to the horse
Yes.
is a place you start.
absolutely. So
Yeah.
matchmaking, and yes, we've always joked around about making a website, like match.com or something.
Yeah. Well, that might be an interesting tool. It might be an interesting revenue stream
right.
now, Susie. Don't give that one up too soon. I'm curious also, do you concern yourself with the facility that they have in the new home, for the new home,
Yeah, we do. So the adoption process is basically they have to fill out an application, give us references, that sort of thing. And then we do a site visit, make sure that it doesn't have to be fancy, but it does have to be safe. And then that the other horses on the property are well cared for.
Yeah.
Horses are not, they're herd animals. They don't need to be somewhere by themselves.
Yeah.
So usually where they're going, there's going to be other horses.
Right,
So,
right.
so once we feel comfortable with all that, people sign the adoption contract. The adoption contract is a little different than a sale, and the difference is that the horse can come back to our program.
Oh.
They are forever protected with our contract. So if somebody has a life change, life happens, and they can no longer care for the horse automatically can come to the program, no questions
Oh,
asked.
that's good.
If we find that the horse isn't being cared for properly, we have the right to go in and make changes or take the horse back if things aren't going well.
So you are periodically monitoring.
Absolutely.
Good.
So, so we have a system where we check back on the horses. Luckily, Facebook makes that pretty easy for me
it does,
these
doesn't
days.
It? I would think social media would be a great way.
Absolutely. And the people that are doing right by the horses, they have zero issues sending me pictures, giving me updates, and showing off. They're very proud owners.
Yeah.
So it's when you don't get those pictures that you're just like, okay, we're going to follow up on that. And almost always it's a good scenario. And there have been horses to come back to the program, but almost all of them have been because the person gave them back, not because we had to take them back. I've
thankfully.
yet to have to take back a horse.
Yeah. So their circumstance changed, and they really needed to send the horse back to you to get it,
Yes.
find another permanent home.
Yes.
Right. Forever home, I think I've heard you say.
Yes, divorce, or one lady she had to have quadruple bypass heart surgery, and she just couldn't care for the horse.
Certainly.
So she did the right thing,
Right.
I mean, that's when you give the horse back.
That's right.
Before the horse sits for 3 months and, so.
Becomes malnourished or,
So, and I think that we're successful in that because we offer a support system, and we do, we try to forge that relationship and make people feel comfortable with us, and let them know that we're on their side. We're not here watching every step they make.
You're really teaming with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, to make certain it's a success. Final question for you. We've just got a couple minutes left, and I'm just curious, for anyone that's watching that really loves animals, whether it's horses, dogs, whatever, cats, what advice would you give them about following their passion? Any particular thing?
Yeah.
Or advice about starting a nonprofit, since you have extensive experience there?
Yeah, I am so happy, and I love what I do, and but I work really hard, and so what I would tell people is, if you love it, go for it, but don't be afraid of the work, and don't get discouraged when things get hard. It's going to be hard. Do your homework. Research these organizations that are there as resources for you. Get that information and learn as much as you can. Create a plan. One pitfall that I did that I would discourage other people from doing is maybe getting too big too quickly. Take your time. Start small. Develop the systems, develop the program.
Perfect the systems in the process, which I think your engineering background really helps you do.
Yes, it does. So, paying attention to that balance, continuing to grow, but monitoring the pace at which you grow so that it doesn't tend to be as overwhelming. But if you love animals and, I was always told that, you can't make money, you can't make a career out of horses.
Right.
And, but I decided to do it anyway.
And you're doing fine.
I'm doing fine.
And you and your family are doing well.
Yes.
Yeah. And maybe they're getting a little bit better life out of it, quite honestly.
You know what?
Back to the roots.
We are so rich in so many ways, we may not be the most financially well-off people out there, but we certainly live a good life.
Well, Susie, thank you very much for everything you're doing. Thank you for being here and sharing that with us. On behalf of my guest and everyone here on the set of Your Career, thank you for watching, and remember, be career happy.
More information about this program is available online at millermediagroup.org. Funding for Your Career is provided by Rockwell Collins. Additional funding provided by